Welcome to the interview for the Global Architecture and Design Awards. And once again, congratulations on winning the 15th Global Architecture and Design Awards. We are delighted to have you with us, Lydia.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'd like to start off with asking you about design initially, like just about the firm itself.
Okay. My name is Lidia Szydlowska, and I am the owner of Pionarch. Our company consists of three parts. The first one is we do provide architectural services. The second one is we provide interior design services. And then the third part is that we actually provide construction services for residential projects. Our company is probably about 15 years old, and I run it together with my husband, who's the contractor.
Okay. So I'd like to get your idea or, the initial brief that the team had about the office interior project.
Mhm.
How did it all start?
Every project for us starts with talking to the clients. We need to find out what kind of brand they're trying to pursue, if they have a brand, if they have any logos, if they have any vision, or if they have any culture. We try to come up with ideas for the space that will reflect the culture, that will reflect the exact essence of what they're trying to capture in space.
So that was kind of an initial brief. I mean, the your understanding, right? So
Mhm.
what was the concept of the project like once you stepped onto the site? What was the concept like?
Do you mean what the project consisted of? Like what was the space?
Yeah, like exactly what the space consisted of, and was also what was the initial thoughts of your team? How you plan to go ahead with this?
When I initially met with the clients, they showed me the space and it was dated 19. It was about 12,000 square feet office space and the lobby was not existent. They had an architect working on the project originally. And when I saw the front lobby design, I immediately had a reaction that we should probably change that. And I proposed to do renderings of the exterior facade. So we started with that. And we started to think about what they actually are. So the company consists of probably about 18 to 20 people right now, and they're trying to hire more people. The project is located in Essex, Massachusetts. The client's name is Queen Brothers, and what they do is they fabricate metal and steel. So the big essence of the project was to take the idea of what they actually do and put that back into the space, emphasize what they actually do for living. So that would be their invitation for their clients when they come to the space to give that wow effect, to see, oh my gosh, this is really Queen Brothers.
Okay, but also, Lydia, at the same time, we witness a lot of workspaces taking place, right? Construction happening day by day. What
Right.
approach does a firm needs to have in order to produce such kind of standout project? What did you guys did differently?
What every project requires programming. So every project requires for us to sit down with the client and analyze their needs, get the idea of how many rooms they need. Do they have to be enclosed or they will have to be enclosed? Is there any generational differences? Which
Okay.
was the case. So, for example, the big picture behind them is that they have a large set of drawings, like we do. Our architects and our interior designers have very large sets of drawings. The drawings are about 24 by 36 or 40 inches wide. So obviously small desks are not going to do. So thinking about things like that produces the project theme, produces the actual final result.
Okay, we've touched upon the concept and the design of the project, right? We've also spoken about the clients as well. What were the materials that you guys basically focused on? What were the primary materials in the project?
The main materials for the project was steel, and we thought about acoustics because once we opened up the space, all of a sudden we had a 3-story volume that we needed to quiet down. So we actually worked a lot with the materials from Armstrong ceilings because they provide the acoustically sound products that would prevent the noise from spreading around and creating the eco effect. So that was one of the major elements. And we also used some stone from Constantino, for example, for the specialty desks, materials on the back that were acoustical materials were going to quiet down that sound of the hard surfaces. And some of the areas are LVT flooring, so it's practical, but some of the materials are carpet, so to give it a little bit more sound absorbent.
I also saw some of the rooms in the project having black ceilings, right? Me personally, I haven't seen a lot of projects with black ceilings. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen in it varies demographically, but still, right? So what was your reasoning behind coming up with the black ceilings?
So a lot of people think about ceilings that it has to be in your face, so it has to stand out. To me, if you create a black ceiling, that means that ceiling disappears for you. So it's kind of an optical illusion in a sense that if an object is a light of a color, it will be your perception to see closer to you. If it is dark, it will be perceived and it is further away. So black is going to make it taller, and black is going to make it all disappear.
Okay, that is a very interesting reason. I haven't had insights about it whatsoever. So it was great to hear. Along the similar lines, I'd also like to get the idea of the development stages of the project, right? What were the phases involved in it? How did the project develop?
So the project went through probably 6 different stages. The first stage was to do the programming. Then we did schematic designs. In schematic design, we usually put together ideas, materials, mood boards, and create this vibe that the space is going to have. And speaking with presenting that to the client has to approve. They have to love it. So we do renderings to show them how it's going to look. Once they accept that, then we go to further into development of the project, which means selecting materials, selecting plumbing fixtures, selecting the space ceilings and lighting fixtures and things like that. So all of that happens in the design development of the project. Once that's all established, we re-render everything just to make sure that the client loves what they see, because obviously when you see the material singular, here's the countertop, here is your fixture, you cannot put that picture together. The only way to do that is to show that through a walkthrough rendering. So we showed them a rendering that they were literally walking through the space and those materials are all in there. And that was really what sold the project for them. They were able to feel like they were there. The next stage after that design development was working on construction documentation. So this is kind of the architectural portion of the project when you need to know, okay, what that wall is consisting of. Is that acoustically sound wall? Is there how do you attach a certain material to it? Where is the blocking? And things like of that nature. And so those technical drawings are the ones that are released to the building department for the final approval. After
Okay.
that's done, the project is in construction. So obviously there are questions about the ceiling detail, for example. I got a call, for example, that, okay, well, we have this ceiling, that's a slatted ceiling. And how do you now see this when we see through it to all the way to the pipes? And that was the thing, that sometimes when you're designing, you think about all these details, but then when you see it, it has to be polished up. Something might need to be changed in the field, because it is obvious that we cannot think about absolutely everything, even though we try. But at the site, it is necessary for us to come in and visit and see those things coming to life, because that's the only way that we can actually have a full control of what that final result, final product will be.
Lydia, we just like briefly touched upon the use of renderings and how it gave a full-fledged experience to your clients as well, right? So along the similar lines, what do you think AI is up to, in architecture? Is it crucial? And if it is, how?
I feel like all interior designers and architects have to present this readiness for the change. I feel that every time there is an economic change, there's pandemic or things of that nature, they affect the actual design style. It affects the way people work, and especially in the working environment, you have to be very considerate of where people come from, and you have to respect their privacy. You have to respect their culture, and the more, in the United States right now, we are probably one of the first countries that accept everyone here. And I'm so glad because I also come from a different country and I was widely accepted everywhere. And accommodation is number one. Accommodation is something that you don't think about when you are not in the wheelchair, for example, right? But then all of a sudden, when you break your leg, you wish that staircase was a little bit lower or shorter. You wish there was an elevator in the building. And you start thinking about all these finishes. Oh my God, this is so slippery. And why didn't I think about that? So thinking about accommodations, heights, human scale, human body, how we interact with materials, what we actually experience is very important. And
Yeah,
experience in space is actually number one to show, to expose the design. Experience in space is something that you create. You're not creating objects. Objects are already there somewhere. Somebody else created them. You're bringing all the objects and you're putting them in space for someone else to experience the luxury of the space.
exactly. There was a runway of Louis Vuitton and Virgil Abloh. When he was discussing about his collection, he himself said that there's nothing special about what I design. What is special about the designs is where I keep them. I put them in a white room.
Yeah,
They become a work of art.
yeah,
So, that is what defines the experience, right?
yeah.
So, correct. Also, I'd like to. So, this is more of a personal question. It's about dwelling into the mind of an architect or designer. When we work on a project, what happens? Let's suppose we've designed a project and everything is done. But when an architect comes again, he visits the site, there's a sense of hits and misses, and he's like, oh, I could have done this better, although I've put in my like one in this project, but could have done this better, or I should have changed this thing. And it just that those thoughts just keep on lingering in those heads of architects and designers. So I assume that it also happens with you, right?
That sometimes when
Yeah,
you,
you
I
work
want to
doing this.
that what you said. So it happens when you come in and you want to change what you just did. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's interesting because, you put together materials and, when you put the rendering, you feel like, yes, everything is working, everything is perfected, right? And then you come in and it doesn't quite work like you wanted. But I feel that anytime in that something that you don't like, I think that there is still time to say this. You don't have to love what you just created. Sometimes some people would say, oh, I don't want to change that. But if it really bothers you, I think it should be brought to the attention of the client that you're working for that, I saw this a little bit differently. And sometimes there is a way to still exchange it. If it's a small thing like a light fixture, you can fix it. But sometimes if it's on a bigger scale, you can't tear the ceiling. Maybe there is some detail you can add to it to fix that problem, So there is always something that you can do. It's just a matter of admitting it.
All right. So also, I'd like to get your idea of the world of interior design. How is it evolving, on a global scale? We've heard a lot about specific designs coming into trend. You can go ahead scrolling on Instagram or whatever social media platform you like. There's a boom of Scandinavian projects there. There's a boom about minimalism. But what is your generic opinion about evolution of design globally? And where is it headed? Is it headed for good?
So there are designers that I'll call them for Glomanians. But there are trends and there are things that you see every day. When you see clients coming into you, they plenty of times they will share you some pictures and some things that they like. And it is your role to not to take that literally. It's your role as a designer to accept what they show you, accept the world, but at the same time to come up with something a little bit more original, something that comes again from that brand, from that culture. In the case of commercial interiors, especially, how do you show history through time? How do you display something? And I think that all makes it all more original to the design itself. To me, the important factor is who is ultimately the user. But many times when you ask yourself, if there was, let's imagine the project doesn't have a client. What would you do? Right? And that's an interesting question. Well, if the client is anonymous, again, you have to think about that experience. What kind
Right.
of experience you're creating? What are you looking at? Is there any view that you want to look at when you sit down in that chair? Is there an orientation of the building that's going to affect the design? Is there anything that you want to take from the locals and put it into the space? So there is so many things that you can do. It's infinite.
All right, great, very insightful response. We spoke about the clients coming up with designs from social media as well, right? So, how important is it for designers and architects to have that art of persuasion, so to say?
So too, everybody looks at the trends and everybody looks at the new things that somebody else has. And obviously you have to take that into consideration that yes, this is what they like, but it's never the same. It's never literal. It's never just it's a nice introduction if you want to be able to take a direction in the project and show that picture. Okay, do you want this contemporary? Do you want this in the traditional? Where are you in the world, in the real, right? It's a good start, but it should never be the pure direction. It takes much more than that to have a well-designed space.
Certainly. I'll go ahead wrapping up this pretty insightful conversation, Lydia, by asking a really personal question, which is about how does one architect, keep themselves creatively bolstered? You yourself, you need to be creatively bolstered I assume 80% of the time, right? So what is your process of being creatively bolstered?
I think creativity comes from other people, talking to other people, and reading different materials. You have to get inspired. To be creative, you have to see some things. You travel, you discover some cool things about other cultures, and you can think about it creatively, philosophically, and then you bring that element into another design, or you open up your mind. You have to keep your energy level up, and the only way to do that for a creative mind is to explore, to add more to their experiences.
Exactly. The other day I was speaking to one interior designer, not exactly, he was a furniture designer. So he
Mhm.
gave me a pretty insightful response about it, which was whenever he travels with a dog. Okay. He travels with a dog on his shoulder.
Yeah.
So whenever people see him, they do act surprised, right? Not exactly act surprised, they are generally surprised, right? A guy coming up with a dog on his shoulder, right? And this is something that inspired him to perform. Interior design is a performance, right? Furniture design, that too as well. So many men, many minds, and many ideas about being creative, right? Right. So it was really great to have you with us, Lydia, and thank you so much for spending time for this beautiful and insightful conversation. And once again, congratulations for your spectacular project. Jury had their own round of applause for it. I don't have to say much about it. The project winning itself says. Thank you,
Thank you.
Lydia, and bye. Thanks for sparing the time. Cheers.
Thank you so much.